dandelions. They're everywhere. If the adult dandelions simply drop their seeds straight to the ground, there'd be no room for new dandelions to grow. So the seeds have to get away if they're going to grow and survive. We saw how each piece of fluff on the dandelion has a seed on one end. The seed doesn't weigh much, but it weighs enough that it wouldn't simply fly by itself. So each seed has its own little parachute made of fluff. By having this parachute, each seed can be carried by the wind to a new field where there's room for it to grow. The wind will carry dandelion seeds for miles. Trees have to deal with another problem. If any tree were to drop its seeds straight down, the seeds would land in the shade of the tree. At first, that might not seem so bad, but that is a deadly situation for a plant, since all plants need sunlight in order to grow and survive. Maple seeds are bigger and heavier than dandelion seeds, and so a little fluffy parachute isn't enough to get them away from the shade of their parent tree. Instead, the maple tree seeds each come with a wing. This way they spin like helicopters, falling away from the shade of their parent. Without this wing, the maple seed would fall straight to the ground like a stone. The vine we saw earlier is also very tall, just like a maple tree. If its seeds fell straight down, they would also land in the shade and not get enough sunlight to survive. The vine seed comes with a wing, but unlike the maple, the wing works like a glider. So this vine uses gliders to send its seeds away. These will fly even with the lightest breeze. That's perfect for the jungles where this vine lives, where the air is humid and still and there's hardly any wind. If the wind works so well for the dandelion, the maple, and the vine, maybe it was the wind that blew the koa seeds all the way from Hawaii to Reunion Island. Maybe. But the wind only blows seeds so far. Dandelion seeds, which are some of the lightest seeds there are, blow a few miles at most. To get from Hawaii to Reunion Island, we're talking about thousands of miles, halfway around the world. So it seems really hard to believe that koa seeds would have been able to fly on the wind for thousands of miles. If it wasn't the wind that carried the seeds, what else could it have been? Well, not every plant uses the wind to spread its seeds. Look for some other clues, like this one, the palm tree. Let's get underneath it. Do you see its seeds? Here's one right here. They're coconuts. You think a coconut can blow away in the wind? No way. There's a good reason coconut palm trees grow near the ocean. Watch what happens to a coconut once it falls from the tree and lands on the beach.
Look what's happening. What happened? So now you know the seeds didn't fly to Reunion Island. Any new thoughts? Ellie?
Why did I get my picture?
Never.
Honey, that is not on task. Okay? If the seeds didn't fly to Reunion Island, what do they do? Anaya?
They would go in the water and they would float.
Do you guys agree that that's a good possibility that they got in the water and the water they floated in the water to Reunion Island? You disagree, Hayden? You do not agree? What do you think?
I disagree.
Okay. Shh. Excuse me. That's very rude. Please let her speak because I called on her.
That it could travel out and need to take pushing it.
So like it grew wings and flapped around without any wind pushing it? Do you guys really think that's a reasonable explanation? Have you ever seen a seed with wings that could fly? No, that's not a very reasonable. Hey, excuse me. You may quietly make the hand signal. You do not get to sit there and shout out and argue.
Coconuts are large seeds. They're about the size of a bowling ball. There's no way they'd blow in the wind. Instead, we saw in this video how once they drop to the ground, the coconut gets picked up by ocean waves. On the water, a coconut floats, like a little raft. Ocean currents carry the seed far away, usually until it lands on another island. So if you dumped a whole bunch of sand in the ocean and created a brand new island with nothing on it, if you come back to your new island in a few years, you probably notice coconut palm trees growing on it. Each coconut washes up on shore and sprouts into a tree. So palm trees use the water, not the wind, to send their seeds away. There are other examples too. This plant, called the sea bean, is another. Sea beans are a type of bean, and they produce the largest bean pods in the world. Forget those green beans on your dinner plate. A single sea bean pod is bigger than your dinner plate.
Hello, girl.
Each pod has little sections
that's as
that
big
fall
as your
away
dinner plate.
individually, like this. And each of these sections is a container or wrapper. Inside of that is the seed. Like coconuts, these seeds float in water, and they'll float long, long distance. Sea beans from South America have been found all the way on the shores of Australia. That's the other side of the world. So floating on the water, could this be the solution to the mystery of how the koa trees traveled so far? Let's finally look at koa seeds and see what we can find. Notice the seeds are in a pod. It even looks a bit like the sea bean. Sending seeds by water so that they're carried by ocean currents, that works really well for coconuts and sea beans. But not that many plants spread their seeds by ocean current. And here's why. The ocean is salty. Salt water kills most plants, unless the plant or seeds have special ways to deal with that. The part of the coconut that we eat, the white part, is the inside of the seed. But on the outside is a thick shell. That's the dark brown part of any coconut. And then surrounding that is an even thicker shell called the husk. If you've ever seen a coconut for sale at the grocery store, it almost never includes the husk. That part's been thrown away. So a coconut seed has all this protection from the salty water. That's why coconuts have no trouble with salty ocean water. And the sea bean, too, has both a thick shell and a protective wrapper around it. Koa seeds? They hardly have any protective shell at all. We've even done experiments, and we see that they die in salt water after just a few days. They won't grow or sprout once they've been soaked in salt water. But in order to make the trip from Hawaii to Reunion Island, koa seeds would have had to have floated in salty water for months. So as tempting as it is to think maybe koa seeds traveled on ocean currents from Hawaii to Reunion Island, it seems impossible. So we've seen that plants have ways of sending their seeds away in order to reach a good place for the seeds to find sunlight and grow. Some plants use the wind to carry their seeds, and others, like the coconut and sea bean, use the water to carry their seeds. So wind and water. Are there other ways that plants move their seeds? There are. You probably recognize these. They're cherries. Cherries are tasty berry, a type of fruit. But think about when you bite into them. You have to be mindful of that stony thing in the center. That stony thing, that's not just there to annoy you. It's the seed of the cherry tree. Here in the background, you can see the cherries while they're still on the tree. A cherry seems like a very unlikely seed to get moved around much. It has no helicopter or wings to fly, and it would shrivel up in the ocean. But every seed has some way of being spread. Do you have any ideas how a cherry seed might get spread? Well, let's think about what happens with a cherry. As a food, it's tasty, and not just to human beings, but to raccoons, squirrels, and foxes too. Just like us, these animals have the pesky problem of enjoying the fruit part of the cherry, but not wanting to eat the stony part inside, the seed of the cherry tree. So you simply chew around it and then spit out the seed. So you see, now the seed has been spread. It's been sent away from the plant so that it might get sunlight and a new place to grow. The animal has done the work for the plant, even if the animal doesn't realize it. So animals are a third way that some plants spread their seed. There's wind, there's water, and there's animals. Whenever you see plants with fruits or berries, you can know that it's an animal which is doing the work of moving the seed away from the parent plant. Perhaps it was an animal then which ate koa seeds and gradually made its way from one side of the globe to the other. A raccoon maybe, or a fox, or a mouse, or a squirrel. But we must keep in mind that there's no land connection between Hawaii and Reunion. They're both islands. With no path to follow, which animal could have taken the seeds from one island to the other?
Hey, do you have any idea what animal could have carried the seeds from Hawaii to Reunion Island?
I do.
Turn and share with your neighbors. You three, share it again. Rudy, yeah, you can run and tell Louise. That's fine.
Come together, man.
All together now. All right, Jimmy.
I was thinking it would someone else been there for him and just had a poetry seed and then put it planted it there before they got there and then when it got grown.
So are you thinking a human brought it? Is that what you mean? So Jimmy thinks a human. Does anybody else agree with that answer? Or does somebody have a different? Okay, so we've got a lot of differing things. Anaya, what do you think? Very quickly.
A squirrel?
So Anaya thinks the squirrel swam that whole way. All right, let's see. Okay. No one knows for sure, but scientists think it is likely that a bird ate the seeds and flew them across the globe. It is known that a seabird like this one called petrels fly around in both oceans and occasionally eat seeds, which can stay in its stomach for many weeks. So, okay, we can't play that, so we'll start on that tomorrow. Okay, clean up your areas.